strongest, happiest moments that I've ever felt in my life are when I'm with my children, when I'm with my family.
Because we don't have enough money to go out and buy food all the time.
Americans seem to live to work, whereas Europeans seem to work to live.
Sounds like a European idea. The balance.
You know, there's this old saying, Americans live to work, Europeans work to live. And while it sounds like just another catchy phrase, when you start looking at the numbers, you realize there's a lot of truth behind it. Let's start with something we can all relate to: time off. In most European countries, taking a vacation isn't just encouraged, it's the law. In places like France and Germany, workers are guaranteed at least 4 weeks of paid vacation every year.
The average in Germany is 28 days of paid vacation, meaning that a lot of employers here give additional days off as an extra benefit.
4 weeks, and that's the minimum. Many get even more. Compare that to the US, where there's no federal law requiring any paid vacation at all. A lot of Americans get maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and some get none. And even when vacation is available, many Americans don't use it. In fact, about 60% of Americans never take a holiday longer than 2 weeks. It's not that they don't want a break. It's that they often feel guilty or pressured not to take one. More than a third of Americans admit they feel guilty about using their time off. In Europe, only about 18% feel that way. And here's the kicker.
One of the things I love about this country is the work-life balance.
When you ask Europeans how happy they are with their work-life balance, over half of them, 51%, say they're happy or very happy. Americans? Just 34% can say the same. That's a pretty big difference. So why does this gap exist? Part of it comes down to work hours. In the European Union, there's something called the Working Time Directive. It caps the work week at 48 hours. And in many countries, like France, the standard is even lower, around 35 hours. In the US, there's no such cap. The average American works more, often 45 to 50 hours a week, and there's this unspoken expectation to be available outside normal office hours. And this isn't just a perception. Surveys show that about 40% of Americans report working 41 to 50 hours a week. In Europe, 50% of people work between 31 and 40 hours, with only about a quarter working more than 40. Long hours are less common, and they're not as normalized. But it's not just about hours, it's about mindset. In Europe, there's a cultural belief that work is just one part of life. You work to support your life. In the US, success is often tied to your career. It's not just what you do, it's who you are. In a casual conversation in America, one of the first questions you'll get is, "What do you do?" In Europe, that question is less central. Your job is just your job. This difference in mentality shows up in other ways too. Take healthcare, for example. In most of Europe, healthcare is universal. People don't worry about losing insurance if they quit or change jobs. In the US, healthcare is often tied to your employer. That adds stress, and it can make people less willing to take risks or even time off. Employee protections are another big one. In Europe, workers are harder to fire without cause. There are stronger unions, better labor protections, and more job security. In the US, employment is typically at will, which means you can be let go much more easily. That creates a culture where people may feel pressure to always be available and always work harder just to keep their jobs. And then there's parental and sick leave. In Europe, paid leave for both is standard. In the US, it's the only developed country without guaranteed paid parental leave. Sick leave policies vary widely. And while about 19% of Americans say they feel pressured not to take sick days, that number is much lower in Europe. Now let's talk about something more everyday: lunch. In many European workplaces, lunch is a proper break. In Spain, some companies still embrace the siesta, taking a couple of hours in the middle of the day to rest. In the US, 49% of employees admit they skip lunch at least once a week. Skipping lunch isn't frowned upon. Sometimes it's even seen as a sign of dedication. And after work, in 2017, France introduced the right to disconnect law.
The right to disconnect is now in law for the first time. It's a world first, in fact. 40% of people are checking emails from home while they're not at work. And the idea is to try and prevent those people from being permanently switched on when they're not actually in the office.
It basically means that employees aren't expected to respond to work emails or calls after hours. The idea is to prevent burnout by protecting personal time. In the US, there's no such protection. In many industries, it's normal to be reachable at all times. This all ties back to work-life balance. Americans often end up working more hours, skipping breaks, and feeling pressure to always be on. Europeans, meanwhile, tend to protect their personal time more fiercely. It's not that Europeans don't work hard, they do, but there's a clearer boundary between work and life. Of course, there are cultural differences too. Americans are often more positive in the workplace. They give more frequent praise and adopt a more upbeat tone at work. Europeans can be more reserved. That doesn't mean they're unfriendly, it just means the culture is less focused on constant encouragement. And interestingly, even though the US has this intense work culture, it's also evolving. Younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, are pushing back.
That this young generation seems less capable to deal with stress than previous generations. That is true. And so they're really good at presenting a confidence.
They've seen how stressful and exhausting the hustle culture can be. Many are advocating for a more balanced approach, similar to what you see in Europe. Remote work, flexible hours, and even the idea of shorter work weeks are gaining traction. But right now, the gap is still there. American jobs, on average, are more stressful and less chill than European ones. Europeans generally enjoy more time off, stronger job security, and less stress about healthcare. All of that adds up to a lower overall stress level. The stereotype that Americans are more work-focused? There's some truth to it, and it's not just cultural, it's structural. US laws offer fewer protections for workers' time, so working long hours is more normalized. In Europe, legal frameworks limit hours and guarantee paid leave. Those laws shape the culture, making long hours less expected. It's also worth noting that productivity isn't just about hours worked. The US is one of the most productive countries in the world, but so are many European nations with shorter work weeks. Fewer hours don't necessarily mean less output, they can mean more focus and less burnout. So if you're an American interning or working in Europe, expect some differences. You might find you're working fewer hours than you're used to. You'll probably get longer lunch breaks. And after work, your colleagues might not even think about answering work emails. But there's a flip side too. When you return to the US, the work culture might feel more intense. The expectations for availability, the shorter vacations, the faster pace. It can be a shock after experiencing a slower, more balanced environment.
You have to figure out what is the best decision for you, and the only person who can do that is you.
That's not to say one system is better than the other. It depends on what you value. The American system rewards ambition and hustle. There's a strong drive for career achievement, and that can create incredible opportunities. The European system values balance and rest, aiming to create sustainable careers and healthier lives. In the end, both systems are responding to their own histories, economies, and cultures. But if you're feeling burnt out in the US, it's easy to see why European work culture can feel like a utopia. More vacation time, better work-life balance, and a culture that sees work as part of life, not the whole thing, can be very appealing. And who knows, with younger generations reshaping the workplace, maybe we'll see more of that European influence in the US over time. For now, though, the differences are real. And if you ever get the chance to work in Europe, it's worth experiencing for yourself, both for the career growth and the personal perspective. So, what do you think? Would you prefer the hustle and intensity of the American system or the balance and structure of the European approach?
Working to live and living to work.
Let me know. I'm curious to hear where you stand on this whole work to live versus live to work debate.